Hello folks, welcome back to the HS Tech Channel. In this video we're going to learn how to use the Icom 9700. It's a pretty complex radio, so we better go ahead and get started. So right away when you turn it on, you'll be presented with a touchscreen, of course, as this is a touchscreen radio. And the first thing you'll probably want to do is, of course, tune the frequency dial. Now I'm sitting here on 2 meters, as you can tell, and the tuning response is relatively quick. Note that I'm in FM mode and I'm tuning extremely fast. So if you don't want to tune this fast, just push here and then you can tune at a much slower rate with a lot more accurate tuning. Of course, being in FM, it doesn't particularly matter either way. You can also tap on your meter here, and this right here will switch you between power output, SWR, automatic level control, compressor level, voltage on the drain, current on the drain, and power out. We'll just leave it on power out. Now I'm running into a dummy load here, so when I key up, you can see I'm running my 50 watts into a dummy load. To change the wattage, push your multifunction dial, and then you can push and hold on this to set it. And now when you tune your dial here, you see we're tuning the power level without doing too much difficult menu work here. Now to change modes, push on your mode indicator here. You can switch it to single sideband. Testing, 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 1, 2, 3. Of course, measuring the power of a single sideband signal, there you go, it goes up when you talk. If you want to tune quicker, push and hold on this number and you can change the tuning step. Alternatively, you can just click on it and now you'll be tuning at whatever you set your tuning step to be. And you can set it to like 10 kilohertz or 100 kilohertz or 6.25 kilohertz or 12.5 for repeater spacing on 2 meters or whatever you may have in your local area. And if we go in CW mode, if you take your hand mic and up here, this one that says up, you can use this as your key. Now, I'm not very good saying Morse code with my finger, but it does at least work. Now, if we return to FM mode, maybe we want to see a waterfall, because obviously this is a very fancy radio and we want to be able to see a waterfall. Okay, to do that, you just push and hold M scope. Now, this is great and all, but as you can see, I can just barely see my signal there, and I can just barely see anything else. Press expand to set, and it will blow it up such that you see this. Now at this point, you can see that as I talk into my microphone here, well actually both microphones, the camera mic and the radio mic, you can see my modulation there, and you can see that I've got it set to the 10 kilohertz deviation setting. You can press span to go between them. Also, you may be able to hear that my fan turned on. Maybe you can't because it cut off as soon as I did that. Testing, testing. It doesn't really matter because this is constant power anyway. But in a moment, you'll hear the fan cut on. There you go. There's your fan. This right here will select the filter. So if you have maybe an adjacent, like a noise birdie or something, and you want to get that out of here, just push fill. And you can actually push and hold it, and you can get a custom filter. And you can tune it right there, and you can get a visual approximation of it. And then, of course, you can do exit to dismiss the menu. Okay, how do you do a repeater? Well, if you just tune to some random repeater frequency, I don't know, 145, I don't know, how about 145, 395? There is no repeater here, and even then I'm going to a really good dummy load in the background. You can see my good old-fashioned cantenna there, so I wouldn't be able to get anywhere anyways. But the first thing you need to do is probably press this button that says function. Come over here, and you need to push DUP. Now, you can go into settings, and you can turn on auto DUP, which may be something that you want to do. I'm not sure if you want that. But it'll make it such that when you automatically tune into a portion on the band plan that's reserved for repeaters, bam, there you go. Now you're duplexing. Okay? Push and hold the button that says Tone RX CSS. This one right here. Push and hold that. And then from here, you can tune the big dial to pick whatever tone. So we'll go 123. Now you may need to turn on the tone. So you can press this button again once. You just don't push and hold it, because if you push and hold it, you get the tone frequency selector. If you get here, boom. There's transmit tone, transmit receive tone, or tone squelch as they call it. And of course, DCS, although they say DTCS because this is Icom here. Tone transmit, and then all these other options here if you have a weird repeater that for some reason has tone up and then DCS down, which I don't think any of those actually exist. And then from here, you're ready to key up. Now do note you can actually see the PL tone in the frequency domain there on the waterfall. That's just what it looks like. Also, you can push this right here, and you can cycle through all those menu options. And of course, as you do this, you're going to get beeps. The beeps are controlled by this volume dial here. Now let's talk about these dials. Right now I only have one VFO shown on my screen here. So if I push this here, it'll switch to the secondary VFO. Now I don't have anything on 70 centimeters and I don't have a dummy load plugged up. So I'll turn off the power and not transmit anything. Simply because I don't even have an antenna plugged up. So it's not like I can make a test transmission in ID. This right here, of course, switches you to and from that. Now, if you are within a repeater region here and you have auto repeater duplex enabled, there you go. If you push this right here, now you have the dual band radio function. And you can press this to swap them. So if you need to retune on 70 centimeters, there you go. Alternatively, you can just click down here and retune. Now, to see a waterfall of the sub, you see this little red thing here that says main? Push that, and that will switch you to the sub band. Also, you can do this here. If there's like a really faint signal, you can click on the waterfall, and then you can click, and it will tune you in right on where it was. Note that this takes a picture, if you will, when that happens. So you may need to fidget around with it so you can do that. Okay, we'll cut this off because we don't need dual band, and we'll expand. You can also do center and fix, and this right here will allow you to do this right here, where you can see your receive. Now, of course, this right here, you can press XFC for transmit frequency something. I don't know, it monitors the transmit frequency. If you're on simplex, it'll monitor that. If you're on duplex, you can see T over there is pretty far away. Now, you can also do this here to do a auto scroll. This is probably what you actually want if you're using this feature here, because note that it automatically scrolls through the ranges as I do that. And likewise, if you go in center, you can do center as well, and you can sort of pan around. It's kind of weird, but it gets the job done. But I just leave it on center, because there we go, I can do this, and you do get interesting results if you tune around while you're transmitting an FM. It's perfectly okay to do, it won't hurt the radio, it just looks a little odd. So, all the modes here are available as well, so, you know, single sideband, testing, 1, 2, 3, this is a test. Of course, we're going on repeater duplex here, because duplex is still on, but there you go, you can see an SSB signal. To get lower sideband for a satellite, just push SSB again. It's the same as the Icom 7300. For CW, there you go. If you want a reverse sideband, you can just do that again. For RIDI, here you go. Of course, I'm doing RIDI with the wrong sideband. Remember, RIDI is lower sideband by default, so here you go. Now, there is actually a FSK decoder you can use to code here to do that, and it's just 45 baud, and you can use TX-MIM to automatically send a message, but there's no point in doing that because we're not here to talk about RIDI on 2 meters. There's also AM, which of course has a very interesting power output curve. Now I will mention something about Icom radios and AM. Note my power output meter. If I whistle into the mic, you can see the double sideband modulation, but if you note my power level, it's 50%, yet the PO meter doesn't really peak up to 50%. Meanwhile, if you go look at the power supply meter, the needle is just constant. So what gives? Well, remember, AM is a little bit tricky to measure the actual power of. You just kind of have to know that the peak envelope power is 4 times the carrier power. So if I'm at 100% right here, dead key, you see that? 25 watts. And when I actually start talking and deviating, you know, now we're actually pulling some current from the power supply. It's not like single sideband. Also, my fans come on because I'm drawing tons of power. Okay, so that's AM for you. D-Star, you just go in DV mode. Now, I'm not going to talk about D-Star in this one because D-Star is a whole complicated mess into itself, but there you go. You can key D-Star. Well, I'm running at 100 watts. Actually, I don't need more than 5. There you go. And again, if you ever wonder what a D-Star spectrogram looks like, there you go. It's got 1 lobe and then 2 lobes to the side because it's a GMSK signal. Now, there is a scan function you can use that allows you to automatically scan between frequency ranges. Also, for some reason, this menu is really laggy. I don't know why that is. It's probably some software bug. This right here, if you press A/B, that will let you operate duplex. And then you can do split when you actually want to operate duplex. Testing, 1, 2, 3. So even though I'm transmitting an FM, I'm receiving a DV for whatever goofy reason. Okay, receiver incremented tuning, we won't talk about that. Kilohertz and memory channel. This right here allows you to quickly tune for some reason, but if you push and hold, you can actually do memory recall. And then you can do that if you're so inclined. And I'm going to make another video on just memory recall, because it is like impossible to do memory recall on this radio. Okay, over here, preamp and AT, this is your preamp, and you're also your attenuator. So if you have a really loud signal nearby, you can attenuate it out. Maybe you're like 2 feet away from a repeater and it's just wiping you out. You know, there you go. Notch, this is actually an auto notch. We're not using that because we're in FM mode. Noise blanker, of course you have to be in sideband to use the noise blanker. Noise reduction, this is a computerized noise reduction algorithm. It's pretty good, but it's not nearly as good as what Yaesu does. Of course, I got a Yaesu sitting over right here. Yaesu's noise reduction is arguably a lot better, but I give Icom credit for what they did. Here's Vox, and as you can see, you know, I'm voxing away. I'm talking, and it's really automatic. And note that I'm not keying the microphone at all. I recommend not using Vox unless you're going to argue with someone on 75 meters. Okay, call/DR. If you press call, it switches you between calling frequencies. And yes, you can tune those once you've got MCH. So of course, here's the FM calling frequency, and here's the unofficial DV call frequency on 145/670. That is the one that Icom says we should adopt. And if you're on UHF, of course you can do that. Now, how do you switch bands? You push on the big frequency, so 146. So you can see here, it'll also have you some presets. So 144.174, well guess what? That's just 2 meter FT8 frequency. 145.525, this is my test VFO. 144.450 is for local 2 meter AM net. And of course you can see 446.7 was me testing an AM. 446.1, same thing. These are all 70 centimeter test options here. And there's also 1.2 gigs. So that's how you can tune that as well. Now, of course, 1.2 gigs is a huge band, and I will recommend, if you're going to operate 1.2 gigs on here, please use the GPS disciplined oscillator plugin at the back for a 10 megahertz reference. I cannot stress how important it is to keep your radio locked. Because last time I was making a 23 centimeter QSO, I was drifting all over the place. It was pretty bad. We'll get back on 2 meters here, and we'll get back in good old FM. Of course, we can look at our SWR, and it's going to be perfect because I'm running into a big old 50 ohm resistor from the 70s. You can use exit to dismiss any dialogues you've got on screen. Quick, these are all options that you can configure. So VFO and memory recall, you can select a meter if you're too lazy to touch it, or if you're like me and maybe you're operating a contest and it's cold outside and you got gloves on, you won't be able to touch your meter. So do quick and do meter select, and you can say, oh, I want to see, I don't know, drain current. Boom, you know, now you can see what your drain current is and make sure that you're not overloading your power supply. Okay, GPS information and position and your home channel set. I don't know why this needs to be here. And of course you can start recording. Now if you have a SD card inserted, you know, right here you can start recording, and that will get you recording there pretty easily. Now function as well has all the other options. So do you want your preamp or attenuation? All these are like actually buttons on here. Some of these don't, so your IP control doesn't. Here's your Vox, so that's already there. Here's your tone option, which again is a physical button. Here's monitor, which is right here. If you just tap this, then you'll be able to monitor. This is a test, testing, 1, 2, 3. This is a test of the audio frequency response that you would hear if you heard yourself coming out of this radio. Alright. I'll turn that off. Here's our duplex control and our transmit power limit. If you want to, maybe you're operating QRP and you want to prevent someone from, you know, cranking that dial for you. And again, you can come up here and you can push and hold this to lock yourself in. Push and hold scope to get this up. And if you push it just once, you'll get a small scope. If you push it for long, you get a big scope. And that's how you can get a useful feature out of that. There's your center and fix. Of course, you have other options as well, like the reference level. I keep mine at 0 dB, simply because I like to be relatively within reference on stuff. You set the default, or you can recall the default there. There's the speed. Here's the marker. This will show you what your transmit is. I keep that off because it's not really needed. And then, of course, your expand set. You span, hold if you want to hold it, and all that. Now, in case you didn't know, once you have an SD card in, if you set the option in menu, you can take a picture by pushing power without pushing and holding it. But that's how you turn the radio on, obviously. You turn it off by pushing and holding it. You just have to tap it quickly to turn it on. But I think that will pretty much do it. Of course, you can use MPAD to quickly recall repeaters here. And you can push and hold it to store a repeater, and then there's a menu option to purge them. And I think that'll do it for just a basic overview of the Icom 9700, and we'll also take a look at, in later episodes, how to deal with repeaters and how to use satellite mode as well, and how to rig it up for data operation. So good luck out there, and don't blow up your radios.